We're back in Foxborough to the sideline. Let's welcome in Steve Tasker.
Well, Kevin, Tom Brady's been in the New England offensive system for 19 years, and today he's going to try and coax a contribution out of Josh Gordon, who's been here all of 12 days. Now, the Patriots believe it's going to change very quickly because Julian Edelman comes off the suspended list tomorrow. And if Gordon, Edelman, and Gronkowski can contribute, Patriot fans here believe that this slow start in September could turn into yet another Super Bowl run in January.
Of course, he had that terrific season back in 2013. Steve, thank you, when he caught it for almost 1,700 yards. A look at Bill Belichick, who's trying to find some reinforcements. He will get Julian Edelman back off suspension next week for his 1-2 New England Patriots, who have won 9 consecutive home games going back to last season. We've had the flip of the coin. The Pats have won the toss. They'll take the second half kickoff. Dolphins will receive, and back there is Jakeem Grant. He had a 102 kick return touchdown against Tennessee opening weekend. He is a blur. And to kick off will be Stephen Gostkowski, who in Detroit on Sunday had all of his kickoffs as touchback. A little bit of a breeze, 65 degrees, perfect day for football, and away we go in Foxborough. And Grant will let it sail away into the end zone, touchback to the 25-yard line, and this brings us to 30-year-old Ryan Tannehill, 73% in its completion percentage.
Yeah, I got a real kick out of what head coach Adam Gase said last night about Tannehill. He said he never understood why anyone wouldn't want to coach this guy. I mean, he's tough, he's smart, he cares about the game and his teammates. He's become a great leader and a very productive and consistent performer for the Dolphins.
Like you were telling us, Rich, he can run the ball very well.
He can make plays when things break down around him, and I think his escapability has been a huge factor the first 3 weeks.
With Gore and Drake in the backfield, 1st and 10. Tannehill right to work. Good block by Kilgore. And oh, it's caught on the side by Stills. Bounces back up. Chung knocks him away and out of bounds. Big time play. Gain of 22. Put him at the 47.
Well, you talk about pinpoint accuracy. This is a dangerous throw. I don't think he ever feels Jonathan Jones, the corner, come back. That went right through the hands, and he was able to squeeze that one in between the corner and the safety. Good start for Tannehill.
Nickel secondary for the Pats. 1st and 10. Tannehill once again to the side. And at the 48-yard line, that's Danny Amendola who makes the catch. Jonathan Jones makes the stop. It's a gain of 3. Put him at the 49-yard line. Amendola, of course, the longtime New England Patriot. There's a look at the offensive line. Tunsil and James are the 2 tackles. They're without a lot of players that they were counting on, like Sitton, who tore a labrum, the Pro Bowl guard, week 1. So Larson will take his place on that line for another week. 2nd down, long 7. Kenyon Drake out of Alabama. Tripped up on the play by Malcolm Brown. Flag thrown on the play as he wheeled his way for 2 down to the 49-yard line.
Holding. Offense. Number 67. 10-yard penalty. 2nd down.
And that is the ex-San Francisco 49er, the center, Rich, Daniel Kilgore. On the defensive line, we know they've been stopping at nothing to get some of these guys back, like today, Trey Flowers. He is huge to get back on that line. They missed him dearly. And Lawrence Guy has gotten some nice praise from Bill Belichick. Hightower's taken a bit of criticism in the press. Van Noy's been solid. There's your secondary. And notice that Patrick Chung is back after missing last week with a concussion. 2nd down and 17. Drake again had a big game Monday night last year down in Miami in the win. Gain of 5. Chung is there on the stop, Rich, out at the 45-yard line.
Well, the Patriots need to tighten up their run defense. 31st against the run. We talked about it. They've given up a little over 143 yards a game on the ground. And you look at the Lions, they snapped a streak of 70 games without a 100-yard rusher when Kerryon Johnson went over 100. So they've worked a lot this week on stopping the run and putting teams like the Dolphins in these 3rd and long situations. This is where Tannehill has struggled in the past.
6 defensive backs, 3rd and 12. They need the 43. Albert Wilson. He'll be short. They usher him out of bounds. Nice play right there by Jason McCourt. He started for the injured Eric Rowe and does the same today. In that secondary, gain of 5. They're shy, Rich. It's 4th down. Here comes the punting unit for the Finns.
And I mentioned in the open, Kevin, that you could see a lot of their sub package. I don't anticipate the Patriots playing with a lot of their base defense. I think you're going to see 5, 6, and even 7 defensive backs on the field at any one time, so they can match up with some of the speed that the Dolphins have at wide receiver.
Matt Hawk is going to punt. Deep back, they've got Cyrus Jones. Hawk.
Ooh, shank.
Wow, no kidding. And out of bounds somewhere inside the 25. They'll mark it up the near sideline. So Brady and his offense will start at the 24. 26-yard punt. Scoreless in Foxborough early on CBS. Rich, does Brady look out of sync to you as you've watched the first 3 games?
Well, I think it's very noticeable that they have been out of sync offensively the last couple of weeks. You just don't see the tempo and rhythm and execution that we've become so accustomed to seeing when you really watch this offense over the years. I think a big part of that, Kevin, is the struggles they're having right now at wide receiver, and that's why getting Josh Gordon in uniform and in the lineup can really help stretch the field.
Gordon is in, as you see. 1st down and 10. Sony Michel, the rookie out of Georgia. Wrapped up right at the line of scrimmage. Not much room right there. And hit on the play by Jerome Baker, who's a rookie out of Ohio State, and there is no gain. And this is the offensive line. They got Cannon back at that right tackle last week. Trent Brown, they made a deal, and they got him over the offseason. And there you see some of the players that Brady will be counting on here. White is in the backfield now. 2nd down and 10. Brown to block at that left tackle. And they got White, who's touched by Alonso, and down he goes after a gain of 5. He'll be up to the 29-yard line of the New England Patriots. They lost William Hayes on their defensive line. That's going to make a lot of work today for Quinn and Wake on each side. But they've been terrific, and they're really going to cause some problems. Alonso is the 2nd leading tackler in all of pro football, that outside backer. Fitzpatrick is a rookie. He is starting for the inactive Rashad Jones, the 2-time Pro Bowler with a shoulder issue. 3rd down and 5.
47.
Wide again in the backfield. Brady up and downfield and incomplete. Looking across the way, flag has been thrown. Dorsett in the way. McCain, who had a tough time with Jordy Nelson last week, may have been flagged on that one. First-year referee is here, Alex Kemp, officiating this game with his crew in Foxborough this afternoon.
Well, I'd anticipate the Dolphins playing a lot of press man-to-man coverage with these receivers.
Holding defense, number 25. 5-yard penalty, automatic 1st down.
25 is their star in that secondary, Xavier Howard for Adam Gates.
Again, playing a lot of press man-to-man coverage. Patterson's got some real speed. I don't really see it there. Maybe they may have been talking about Bobby McCain and somehow said Howard instead. But regardless, look, they're going to double Gronk. You have to do that, and then you play press man-to-man on the outside because they have not done a good job getting the ball to the receivers. And of course, Brady wants to find his tight end in the middle of the field.
Michel is in 1st and 10.
Hey, alert! 52.
Brady to Michel. Squeaks through and falls ahead about the 43-yard line. And brought down by Godshaw with a nice gain of 8, an explosive move for 8 as he goes up the middle. Against Detroit, the Patriots began with 3 straight 3-and-outs. That had never happened under Tom Brady in his years in New England.
I don't think they got their first down until 3 minutes into the second quarter. So, I mean, look, they need to get off to a fast start. They need to play with the lead for once in a while.
Michel on 2nd down, long one's got the first. Hogan with the block. Fitzpatrick with the tackle. He's into Miami territory. Put him at the 44, gain of 12 and a 1st down.
Well, they have to be able to run this outside zone, and this really helps getting the stretch play going. You look at the blocking on the perimeter, and you look at this big gaping hole for the back. And we talked about some of the struggles that they've had rushing the football. It takes some of the pressure and strain off the passing game.
1st down and 10. Michel Devlin trying to get a block, and he does. And then Fitzpatrick is there along with a couple others, including McCain, to bring him down. Another nice run. That of 14 on the heels of a 12-yard run to the 29 of Miami.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting talking with defensive coordinator Matt Burke last night. He said you never know what you're going to get with regards to personnel, formations, or even concepts. This is a very game plan specific offense, so it can change dramatically from week to week. And he said, look, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come out with a fullback and a back and just try and pound the football at our front.
White is in. 1st and 10. Cordero Patterson, and the flag is down and on his back and riding him out of bounds. Bobby McCain, gain of 5.
Well, if you've got two really good edge rushers in Quinn and Wake, you got to be able to change up the snap count. That's just what Brady did there. Be able to help those tackles.
Offside. Defense. Number 94. 5-yard penalty. Still 1st down.
Well, look, how do you help these two tackles? You look at Brown and you look at Cannon. You do that by stepping up in the pocket and helping the tackles with the edge rush, and also by changing up the snap count. Brady's really good at that.
Patriots have just scored 7 points in the first quarter combined in the last 3 games. Moving now, 1st and 5. Gordon is in.
Gonna run the ball here.
You called it. Bopping his way. White down to about the 19-yard line. James White, the University of Wisconsin 4th-round pick 5 years ago with a pickup of 5 and a 1st down for the Pats. So Michelle's had a couple nice runs of 12 and 14 yards. 8 as well. Down to the 20 on that run by White.
Same formation. Sometimes plays that look the same that are different. You easily get a play action shot here out of Brady.
Brady on 1st and 10. White. That one trying to provide a block and wrapped up right there with the tackle by McDonald on a gain of 4. They'll put him down about the 16 of Miami in a good looking opening game drive for the Patriots.
I think it's interesting. You look at how they use White last year. Deion Lewis more of the ball carrier. And White didn't have a ton of production, just 171 rushing yards all of last season, despite playing a higher percentage of the snaps than any other running back on the Patriots. He's really in there as the 3rd down back and in the passing game.
2nd down 6. White has the most receptions of any back in the NFL. There's a deflected ball, and it's incomplete. And looks like maybe Kiko Alonso got a hand on it. He's playing well. Had interception earlier in the season.
Well, this is a guy that commands a lot of attention. Kiko Alonso knows he has help over the top. There's a lot of attention when Gronk goes running down the middle of the field. You've got 3 defenders in that area, 2 safeties, and a linebacker that's getting depth with his drop.
Would you be surprised if I told you that Gronkowski has not been targeted in the red zone this year?
No, think about it. They've thrown the ball 11 times in that part of the field, and he hadn't had a single.
Gordon on 3rd and 6, down to the 2. What a catch. Pinballs his way into McDonald and Alonso. On 3rd and 6, a 13-yard gain, 1st and goal, New England.
Well, this is what they need. They need to get Josh Gordon comfortable, get him some touches early. He's a tough tackle with the ball in the open field, and he's got some size, and he can really help Brady not only down in the red zone but in 3rd down. The question, Kevin, is just how much of this offense is he comfortable with? Remember now, Brady's been in the system for 19 years. Josh Gordon has been here all of 12 days.
Michelle, 1st and goal. Digs his way in. One rookie meets another. Minka Fitzpatrick, he probably made a couple tackles on Michelle at Georgia. There's a gain of 2 right there, down to about the 1.
Well, Sony Michel was dynamite in his final season at Georgia. He had over 1,200 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns, kind of a no-nonsense runner who makes quick decisions and get to top speed in a hurry. But you haven't seen the explosiveness out of Sony Michel. You don't know if he's just not healthy or the fact that he is just getting comfortable in this offense.
Waddle is in, trying to block at that right tackle, 68 right there, but you can see they plug it up and they throw him for a 1-yard loss. Couple guys in there, Wake and Woodard, who they just got off the practice squad. Nice defensive play there by Miami.
Well, you look at this Miami front, Kevin. They took a big hit last week. They obviously beat the Raiders, but they lost some real key run stuffers. William Hayes to a knee injury. He's on IR. Andre Branch, he hurt a knee. He's also out. So don't have quite the depth and talent that they did a week ago, but this has been a very active and aggressive front for the Dolphins.
White is in, Gordon in, 12th play of the drive. Brady deflected and almost picked, going for Patterson. A lot of hands in there. May have been Maurice Smith. 4th and goal. The field goal unit comes on, and Brady cannot get in with a goal to go.
You get good push up front and get a bunch of hands up, and this is on a back shoulder. Brady trying to slow down Patterson in the hole. Not an easy throw for Brady.
Here comes Gostkowski. He has made 35 straight field goals under 40 yards. A 20-yarder right here. 3-zip pants. Long drive. Michelle with some good runs of 12 and 14. Gordon caught one from Brady for 13 yards. 3-0 New England. 5.5 in the first on CBS.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Pizza Hut, official pizza sponsor of the NFL. AARP. Take on today with AARP. Real possibilities. And by T-Mobile, America's most loved wireless brand.
Story on that drive might have been the fact that Miami's defense held in the red zone. They're the 3rd best red zone defense in pro football.
A little bit of bend but don't break, and I think Matt Burke's done a terrific job. You look at the improvement, especially with their run defense. In 2016 they were 30th. This year they're currently 7th. They've done a much better job on the early downs stopping the run.
Matt Burke is a Hudson, Massachusetts native. Gostkowski, who just booted the 20-yard field goal, and Jakeem Grant watches it go away to the 25 and a touchback. Well, tomorrow, Cedric the Entertainer, Max Greenfield star in the new comedy the critics call Laugh Out Loud Funny. The Neighborhood premieres tomorrow at 8, 7 Central on CBS with Rich Gannon, Steve Tasker on the sideline, Kevin Harlan in a full house here at Gillette today.
Number 79 has reported eligible.
When I study this offense, I see striking similarities to what they're doing in Kansas City, specifically with regards to the scheme and personnel. And really, the precision, the execution, and the team speed, very noticeable. And it's a fun offense to watch.
Couple tight ends, both rookies, Drake in the backfield. 1st and 10 for Ryan Tannehill out of Texas A&M. Being chased and dumps it off underneath and dropped on the play. They were looking for one of those rookie tight ends. The rookie out of Notre Dame, Durham Smythe, incomplete pass. Coverage on the play by Landon Roberts.
And when you're struggling on defense, it's an opportunity, I think, to get back to the basics on the practice field. We saw a lot of that this week in individual drills, really highlighting the importance of technique and fundamentals. And saw a lot of that on Friday. Just trusting your run reads, your hand placement, the footwork, the pursuit angles, doing the little things that it takes to become more consistent on defense.
6 defensive backs. 2nd down, 10, Drake. Oh, they're following him. There's Hightower making the stop. No gain on the play. Dante Hightower.
Just keep an eye on Dante Hightower in the middle of this defense. I mean, he's just going to come screaming. He plays off the block of the guard Larson, and he's able to make the stop in the hole. And it's good to see when you hit it back, him go backwards and not forwards.
The Lion offensive line was dominant over the Pats defensive line last Sunday. 3rd and 10, 6 in the secondary. Good time. Tannehill and incomplete for Amendola. Coverage by Jonathan Jones and a flag at the 30.
I'm not surprised, Kevin, to see the Patriots play a lot of man-to-man coverage against Miami. They don't want to give him any free access throws. They want to force Tannehill to throw the ball in some tight windows.
Holding. Defense, number 31. 5-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
That's on Jonathan Jones. He struggled with the Lions wide receiver last week, Kenny Galladay.
He's inside in the slot. You just see him grab a hold of Amendola, who's running the corner route. But again, I think you have to make Tannehill make some contested throws. They want to get him into third down situations where the game speeds up for the quarterback.
Nickel with the 1st and 10. Tannehill. This is Albert Wilson. Good read on it right there by Stephon Gilmore, their leading tackler, and he limits him to no gain on that 1st down throw.
Well, Tannehill's completing 82% of his throws on 1st down because a lot of those throws are at or around the line of scrimmage. They want to do a good job getting the ball into the hands of their playmakers. You look at Albert Wilson, we talked about Jakeem Grant. These guys have the ability of making the first defender miss and going a long way with the football.
6 defensive backs. They bring in Harmon, 2nd down 10. Gore is in. Well, they got around the rookie tight end, but Tannehill sidesteps him and looking for Wilson. Heavy coverage downfield. Harmon was there. Gilmore was there. Incomplete.
Well, you see the tight coverage, the line of scrimmage. This is really where I think Stephon Gilmore is at his best. He's got the long arms, the length that you love at the cornerback position. Kevin, I mentioned to you during the week as I study film, to me, he's not as effective when he plays from off coverage. If I were Bill Belichick, I'd have Stephon Gilmore play press man-to-man coverage the entire day. You've got to find a way to affect the timing and the release at the line of scrimmage with some of these smaller, quicker receivers of the Dolphins.
7 defensive backs, 3rd and 10. Time, toss, incomplete. He was looking for Kenny Stills. We have the coverage by a couple, including Devin McCourty. Here comes the punting unit once again. Jones over there as well.
Just a 4-man rush, but you look at Tannehill, he's got enough time to set his feet. There's just nowhere to throw the ball down the field. Kevin, you mentioned 7 defensive backs. That's their quarter package. I think we're going to see a lot of that today because of the speed and the playmaking ability that the Dolphins have, not only at wide receiver, but at tight end and also the backs. They want some smaller guys that can cover and play in space.
Hawk had a 26-yard punt the first time for Miami. Deep back, Cyrus Jones. Played for the first time since Christmas of 16 last week. He gets this one away, and looking into that bright New England sun. Jones from the 26. Ebner with the block. And brought down on the play by Martell Spate. 8-yard return, 44-yard punt. 2 possessions, 2 Miami punts so far. Robert Kraft has owned the New England Patriots since 1994, and what he has done with his son Jonathan and some terrific people in the front office and their coach Bill Belichick has been nothing short of remarkable.
Think about that. In 24 years, Kevin, they've been to 9 Super Bowls. It's quite a run for Mr. Kraft and the Patriots.
After the second consecutive Miami punt, Sony Michel, 1st and 10. Tripped up on the play. Is on that line, Jonathan Woodard.
Let's take a look at the scouting report. Still the best in the business, Tom Brady. At 41 years of age, it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. We talked about the struggles they're having at wide receiver. They need more production there. You look at this Miami defense, I think their secondary, particularly Xavier Howard and the rookie Minkah Fitzpatrick have played really well. And if there's a weakness right now, it's depth along that defensive line. They lost 2 defensive ends last week. William Hayes to a knee injury, and Andre Branch out today with a knee as well.
Secondary leads the NFL with Seattle in interceptions. A pass to Gronkowski on that 2nd down and 11. Hit by Alonso, whacked by McDonald. 12-yard pickup to the Patriot 46.
Well, you just can't allow Rob Gronkowski to get a free release off the line of scrimmage. You know, he is a guy that gains speed as he gets down the field. Defensive coordinator Matt Burke said he's like a runaway freight train. You got to be able to get your hands on him and slow him down at the line of scrimmage.
1st and 10. Good block by Brown. It's going to sail out of bounds. White was in the vicinity, but basically throwing it away. For Tom Brady, 13-time Pro Bowler, 5-time Super Bowl champion. Most wins as a starting quarterback in pro football history. Rich, last week against Detroit, threw for 133 yards, the lowest in the last 5 years for him in terms of games he's completed.
Well, pedestrian type numbers for Brady. You could really see the frustration, I think, when you watch that game. And I think they're getting close. If they can get Josh Gordon going, they get obviously Julian Edelman back next week. That'll make a lot of difference for this offense.
Into the nickel. Here goes White. Second down and 10. And stoned inside. Gain of a yard. Couple guys, including Harris, on that line. Chris Harris, the #1 pick out of Missouri, making the stop at the 47.
We're talking about great quarterbacks this week. You mentioned Drew Brees, and some of the guys have been around a long time. But Brady has been entrenched as the Patriots starter since 2001. And really, with the exception of that 08 season where he had the knee injury, he's never missed an NFL start due to an injury. He's played in all 16 regular season games 14 times during his career.
Gordon is in. 5 in the secondary, 3rd and 9. Time. And the throw, and it is almost picked off. They fight for it. Did McCain get it? Did he pull it away from Dorsett? Yes, he did. We just finished telling you they are on top with Seattle in terms of interceptions. The 8th by the Miami Dolphins, leading the NFL, and McCain will make his first of the year.
I talked about the strength of the secondary. You're going to see Dorsett run a little dig route. What happens is McCain falls off the inside receiver. I don't know that Tom Brady ever saw him before he let go of that football.
4th career by McCain. Late first quarter on CBS.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by McDonald's. And by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
Turnover by that secondary. They forced the second most turnovers in pro football. Extra lineman is Young. 1st and 10. And wheeling his way out to the 40-yard line is Frank Gore, and he picks up 3 to the 38.
Let's go back and look at the interception. This is Dorsett, and this is McCain right here. And what happens is that McCain is covering Hogan up the slot. Now go ahead and freeze it right there. And what happens is this is where the in cut's coming. And what happens is McCain turns back around, and Brady never sees him. Brady never sees him fall off Hogan and jump the in cut from Dorsett. You don't see that very often where Brady gets fooled by the coverage.
Nickel secondary, Gore and Drake back there. 2nd down and 7. Frank Gore again, 4th all-time leading rusher in pro football, and wrapped up and taken down, losing a yard on the play. Had a couple in there making it, and Landon Roberts, I think, led the charge on that line and on that linebacking core for the New England Patriots.
Well, there's been much more of an emphasis on the running game when you study this Miami offense. Last year, they had the lowest percentage of rushing plays in football. This season so far, they got the 3rd highest. And they're almost at just under 50%. I think the addition of Frank Gore in free agency has been a big part of that.
So Miami is only completing 3rd downs 32% of the time. Lions last week were 50% successful against the New England D. 3rd and 8. They need the 46. Flag. Can you believe the Lions converted 50% of their 3rd downs last week against this New England defense? It's an amazing number.
Ball start. Offense, number 78. 5-yard penalty. Still 3rd down.
Laremy Tunsil, their starting left tackle.
I think getting Trey Flowers back certainly helps. He's their best pass rusher. He's led them in sacks each of the last 2 seasons, and getting Patrick Chung back in the secondary helps as well.
End of the first quarter. Timeout.
First quarter's come to a close. 20-yard field goal by the Pets. We return to Foxborough after this on CBS. Brady has thrown an interception. They do get a field goal. They had a goal to go, so Miami's defense has played well so far, and the defense of New England has forced 2 punts from Miami.
And the defense of the Patriots have done a much better job on 1st and 2nd down. This is the 3rd time today that the Dolphins have been in a 3rd and 10 or longer.
7 defensive backs, 3rd and 13. They need the 46. Tunsil the block. Short at the 40. Jones is there with the stop. They don't get it. Stills makes the grab. Gain of 7. Here comes the punting unit for a 3rd straight possession for Tannehill and the Miami offense. Jones back again. Cyrus Jones played at Alabama. He was a 2nd-round pick, signed off the Baltimore practice squad after being cut by the Pats. Hawk to punt it again. Long snap from Denny is low. Jones from the 10. Finds a hole. Good cut. And then brought down on the play. With a 23-yard return hit by Sonoris Perry on a 48-yard punt. And that takes us to another possession for Tom Brady. Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon up here in the booth. We have Steve Tasker on our sideline. Some first quarter thoughts.
Well, you know, these are teams that are very familiar with one another, so you look at how they match up. Matchups are a big part of it, and I think that Miami's done a much better job, I think, playing a little bit more press, man-to-man coverage, double and Gronk. But on the other side of it, I think the Patriots are trying to run the football and take advantage of some of their matchups as well. I anticipate we'll see a little bit more of Josh Gordon as this game goes on.
Michelle with the block, or trying for a block, and Brady is wide for his fullback Devlin with the coverage by Alonso. Second down and 10.
Well, if you're Miami, you've got to have a plan for how you're going to account for Rob Gronkowski. And I think it's whether it's T.J. McDonald, whether it's Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think you'll see a lot of in and out coverage, some bracket. And I think the important thing with a player like Gronk is to get your hands on him at or around the line of scrimmage. You cannot allow him to get a free release. It's a guy that gains speed as he gets down the field. He's not going to kill you with his suddenness or his quickness out of breaks.
Brady second and 10. Patterson, former Raider, Viking. Nice play on the perimeter there by Robert Quinn. With a gain of 3 for Patterson to the 36. First trip to New York. Let's go to James Brown.
Nate, a golden play.
That's right, and here's Matt Stafford dropping back, and check out Golden Tate on the outside from the inside. He runs a comeback, hits the sideline, puts a move on the safety. I see you, 24-karat golden like Bruno Mars. The Lions lead 7-3.
And we see Kevin, Rich, and Steve.
Troy doing it again, Rich.
Yeah, they can't afford, the Cowboys can't afford to fall behind, Kevin. They really struggled the first 3 weeks on offense.
Gordon is in, 3rd and 7. Brady. Incomplete for Gordon. Flag is thrown, maybe on Xavier Howard, who's had 7 picks in the last 8 games and really is playing as well as any corner in pro football right now. End of last year, the start of this.
But on the other side of it, Kevin, he's thrown in the direction of Josh Gordon. I mentioned he's only been in the building 12 days.
Well, the quarterback still had the ball in the pocket. Illegal contact. Defense. Number 25. 5-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
4 penalties now on the Dolphins, Rich, and 3 have come on their defense today.
And if you get press coverage, it's going to be difficult for Brady to really know how Gordon is going to behave, if you will, whether he's going to get his depth, how he's going to come out of cuts. They just don't have a lot of history together. And the trust factor is absolutely critical for Brady, that he knows what you're going to do in critical situations.
Reload! 52! Reload! 19!
It's a 1st and 10. White on that line, wrapped up on the play by Spence, and a gain of 1. Spence was ejected last week after tearing off some guy's helmet against the Raiders, which may not surprise you.
Coleccio Semele. The great thing was, I loved his reaction afterwards when they interviewed him in the locker room, Akeem Spencer. I didn't know you couldn't rip somebody's helmet off. You know, it's just, but look, they have gotten a lot of production from this front. And certainly the addition of Robert Quinn has made a big difference.
In the nickel, 2nd down and 9. Screen. Well, that doesn't produce much at all. Lonzo is there. They all jump on him after a gain of 3. White was trying to maneuver. White had that 10-yard touchdown reception last week in Detroit.
Well, anytime you watch the Dolphins defense, you just can't help but notice 47. Kiko Alonso's really gotten off to a fast start this season. 15 tackles last week in the win over the Raiders. I think he's got the 3rd most tackles through the first 3 weeks of the season. He's a great space player. He's got great speed and quickness. He can run sideline to sideline.
Alonso born in Newton, Massachusetts. 3rd and 6 here. 5 in that secondary. Cannon gets the block at the right tackle. Look at who's wide open. Patterson, acrobatic catch. Great move by McDonald. That is 6. 55-yard touchdown pass. Brady to Patterson.
You're probably wondering how he gets wide open. There's actually a pick that the receiver runs into the corner covering Patterson. And it happens right at the line of scrimmage, and that's why Patterson is so wide open. He's rare. He's 6'3", 225 pounds, and he is not a lot of guys are going to be able to tackle or even catch him in the open field.
He hasn't got a touchdown pass since 2016. 8th of his career right there. Longest play for the Patriots from scrimmage this season. Tack on one more from Gostkowski. 10-zip. The Pats. 12:01 to play in the first half. Cordero Patterson electrifying, returning, and this time with the catch and the run for 6 for Brady. Of those notes right there, and of course where Brady stands in the all-time pantheon of great quarterbacks, you can see it, but the 70th different target that Brady has hit ties Vinny Testaverde, who now both are at 70 different targets throwing touchdown passes too.
But to play a long time to put up numbers like that, and that was a big play for the Patriots. We talked earlier about the fact that they had just one play through the air of 20 yards or more. The struggles they've had stretching the field vertically, they have to find a way to continue to throw the ball and attack outside the numbers.
Don't forget that big 3rd down penalty against Miami, which kept that New England drive alive against Gostkowski. He'll chip it. This is Perry under it, running back, and he'll submarine his way out to the 38-yard line with a 15-yard return. He's out of Louisville. Saturday, the best game from the best conference features 5th-ranked LSU taking on Florida, and it promises to be a good one with their last 4 games decided by a touchdown or less. The drive to Atlanta and college football today bring you all you need to know beginning at 2:30 Eastern on CBS. 3 Miami possessions and Rich 3 consecutive punts.
This is an important possession. They can't afford to continue to fall behind on the road against this Patriots team.
Nickel secondary, Gore is in 1st and 10. Going home there, looking for Drake. Coverage on the play, handed off to Stephon Gilmore, the former Bill.
When we talked to Tannehill last night, he talked about the importance, Kevin, of getting off to a quick start. They haven't played well from behind here in New England. Last season, they were...
Pass interference, defense, number 24. Ball is placed at the spot of the foul. Automatic first down.
Watch Drake. Gives him a little double move, and it fools the veteran Stephon Gilmore, and he does the smart thing. He grabs a hold of him. But again, you look at their production last season, they were the worst scoring team in the first half of games, averaging just under 7 points. They'll be able to come away with some points on this series.
1st and 10. Kilgore got the block at the center. Almost picked off. Just that close for Jonathan Jones. 2nd and 10 coming up. We take you to CBS in New York, and here is James Brown.
Aaron, hands off to Aaron.
That's right. It's a draw play. It's simply Aaron Jones gets right in. He was in shotgun, but he handed off to his running back, who accounted for more than half the yards in that drive. Green Bay up 13-0.
Can anybody imitate Kevin Harlan's voice?
I don't think so. It's too
Dr. Kevin, I'm not as good as that. All right, Kevin Harlan.
You guys are too nice. Green Bay losing last week in Washington. Bills shocking everybody with their win in the Twin Cities. Against the Vikings, 2nd down and 10. Gore, Tunsil a block, Larson a block, and for a couple, Van Noy jumps on him after a gain of 2. Rich down to about the 47-yard line.
You have to stay with the running game. I think if there's a criticism sometimes with Adam Gase, they fall behind and they abandon the running game. I just think you've got to continue to hand Gore the football as well as Drake and stay after it. It can really pay huge dividends. And again, it keeps Brady off the field. Time of possession will be absolutely critical in this one.
Rich, we've not seen much trickery, much gadgetry yet by this offense of Miami.
Well, trust me, they've got a ton of it. They've got the guys that can do it. And obviously, Albert Wilson is a big part of that, as well as
7 in the secondary, 3rd and 8, and Tannehill going deep. That's overshot, incomplete. Gilmore stride for stride with Kenny Stills. That's incomplete. 4 possessions. Here comes the punting unit on the field for the 4th time.
Not surprised to see the Patriots play a lot of man-to-man coverage. Press man-to-man coverage. They don't want Tannehill to have those free access throws where he can just throw the hitches and the quick slants on the early downs. They want to get up and press these receivers and disrupt the timing and the rhythm of the passing game. Done a good job keeping Tannehill in those 3rd and long situations.
There's a slight breeze here in Foxborough today. Matt Hawk to punt. Cyrus Jones back to retrieve it. High, but no distance. Landing at the 20 and out of bounds.
A couple poor punts early from Hawk.
Hawk is averaging about 49 a punt. He's had a couple of duds so far. New England pitching a shutout into the 2nd quarter in Foxborough.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Corona Extra. Find your beach. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. And by the well-connected 2019 Lincoln MKC.
17 years ago today, Brady makes his first start, played Peyton Manning. How ironic is that? How they would go down with a very wonderful relationship going head to head.
You think about how productive he's been, Kevin. I think he may be the best quarterback in the history of the game in avoiding the negative play. The sacks, the turnovers. More often than not, he's going to throw the ball away and move on, and that's the sign of a very smart quarterback.
White in the backfield, 1st and 10 after the 4th consecutive Miami punt. Brady, Gronkowski, grabbed by Howard and others, banged around, 30-yard line. He will pick up 8 on the play to Steve Tasker on the sideline.
Yeah, in preparation for this game, I read some articles about Tom Brady, obviously. I read one about his repertoire of training. He's 12-month a year. He's got a competitive fire second to none. He just never lets up. And the article discussed how long he could extend his career and how long his clean lifestyle could keep him at the highest level. And I thought, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. And then I read the article was written in 2014. I mean, the guy has not let up.
2nd down, long one. White shiftily moves into the grasp of Fitzpatrick and picks up 5 and a 1st down. Brady, 41, as we talked about. Rich, he was the only quarterback in the NFL to skip the offseason practices. He did not participate here this past offseason in Foxborough, where he normally has.
Well, he's got a young family, and I think his, obviously, I don't say his priorities have changed, but he's a smart player, Kevin. He knows how to take care of himself and prepare for a long NFL season.
Quick outs, 1st and 10. Look at Sony Michel, 3rd all-time leading rusher at the University of Georgia. Hit by Raekwon McMillan after a 13-yard run, but let's see where the flag at the 34 is all about. Brady has thrown a pick and a 55-yard touchdown pass so far in this one. 1-2 New England, 3-0 Miami. Dolphins, one of 3 undefeated teams in pro football, coming in along with the Chiefs and the explosive Rams. There are 4 new crew chiefs this season in their first year. Kemp is one of them.
There were 3 fouls on the play, all by the offense.
Whoa.
Holding, number 77.
That's a lot.
Holding, number 15. Both those penalties are declined. There was also tripping by the offense, number 69. That penalty is accepted, 10 yards, 1st down.
Shaq Mason, who's the starting right guard.
I don't know, but it sounds to me like the Patriots are trying to get an unfair advantage on that play, huh? Sounds like my old team, the Raiders. You're not.
That is like the Raiders.
You're not cheating. You're not trying. 3 penalties on one play. It's a trifecta. And what's unusual, this is usually one of the least penalized teams in football at the end of every regular season.
1st and 20 with Michel right through the hands of Patterson. Look who's reading it over there. The number 1 pick out of Alabama for this Miami team, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Let's go back to our CBS studios in New York and James Brown.
Cincy, crisp.
One of the fastest guys in the league right there, John Ross on the post route. He gets wide open for a 39-yard touchdown. Comes up a little limp, though. The score, 21-14.
We'll update you as soon as we know. Back to Kevin Harlan.
Ross ran the fastest recorded time ever at the Combine a couple of years ago.
He also played for Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Snoop Dogg's team out in California. That's a youngster.
Yes, it is.
A little bit of trivia for you.
2nd down and 20.
A good-looking hole.
Yeah, White is there, and then he's grabbed from behind by Spence. And a gain of 5 as he bangs to the 32.
Yeah, good-looking hole. This little inside Power play, you see the kick out from the center, the guard, Tooney comes down and be able to continue to run the football.
Well, they've gone through a lot of running backs.
Yeah, not having Rex Burkhead hurts.
Burkhead is now on IR after the neck injury. 3rd and 15 here for Brady. He's got time. Good block there late by Cannon. Good catch by Dorsett. And Minka Fitzpatrick will bring him down hard. He gets to about the 45. He's shy of a first. It was 3rd and 15. It's a 13-yard pickup, and the punting unit will take the field.
And look at the Patriots jump the ball as the punt return unit of the Dolphins ran on the field. This could be a no snap, no play situation.
They were changing, and then they all went the opposite way while we're doing that replay. 4th and 2, and here they come again. 2 trips out there. Here comes Ryan Allen.
And the officials will stop it and allow
for an injured Miami player.
There you go.
That's what happened, and there was a player down, McCain, who has the interception off Brady today. McCain is down, as you can see.
Now you wonder if McCain just fell down because they knew they were short. They were having a difficult time getting lined up, so he just, I don't know this. Just watch up here. You tell me what you think's happening, because they're having a difficult time getting on and off the field, and then he realizes as the officials switch out the ball, he just goes down. I don't know. Maybe it's a late cramp or something, but he jumped back up. You see Belichick over talking to the official. He don't like it.
I read his lips there. I don't think he cared for that play.
Nonetheless, say what you want, it's a good alert play by Bobby McCain because he knew they were shorthanded. You don't want to give up an explosive play to Brady when you're in between making substitutions.
Bobby McCain is from Oxford, Alabama. Went to Memphis, 5th-round pick, 4th and 2.
Something tells me he'll get a Gatorade and be back in the next series. Yeah, just fine.
Ryan Allen to punt, 2-time Ray Guy winner at Louisiana Tech.
Delay game.
Yep.
Delay of
5
game.
was thrown.
Offense.
Danny Amendola was back for
5-yard
Miami.
penalty. 4th down.
Which seems weird, but he was back when he came out before the game. Amendola was given a nice applause by the crowd about 2 hours before kickoff. 5 years here, 2 Super Bowls. Rich, he did a lot.
He's a great player, Kevin. He's really helped the young receivers in Miami, and I think he's helped to change the culture down there.
Ryan Allen's punt. Short from the 24-yard line. Danny Amendola finds a crease. End time was only 3.09. A 12-yard Amendola return. 36-yard punt. Belichick is up 10-zip over Miami. Big-time game in the AFC East. Talked to head coach Adam Gase last night, Rich. He said, you know, as an offensive coach, this is what you dream of, going up against maybe the best defensive coach ever in Bill Belichick.
Yeah, but this is not the kind of start you dream of. They're struggling right now. The quarterback's just 5 of 10 for 37 yards. Have yet to convert a 3rd down. The first play from scrimmage, Tannehill hit Stills for 22 yards. The next 14 plays, they've only had 24 yards of offense against this Patriots defense.
Drake is in right through the hands of Tannehill. It's loose. Oh, it's picked up by Van Noy. Turnover. Fumble. And the Patriots are going to get it. Kyle Van Noy vacuums it in at the 20.
Well, it's tough to tell whether it just came in hot on Tannehill or he just missed it, but he's got it on the ground for a split second. That looked hot to me. You look at Kilgore, he threw him a fastball. Tannehill wasn't ready for it. That's resting on his shoulder, and Van Noy has the wherewithal to rip it right away from him. A huge turnover for the Dolphins.
There was a new center in Travis Swanson. Normally it's Kilgore.
Oh, it was Swanson.
And Kilgore, the normal center for that one play, was out. Now this defense, which has already had a goal to go against it from that New England offense, will be pressed at their 22. Four-man rush, Brady on 1st and 10. White, oh, good cut. He got Quinn to break his ankles, and he goes in for the touchdown. Ankle-breaking move by James White. 22-yard touchdown run.
Well, all these running backs are so interchangeable, and you've seen this inside zone run. You see the guard come around, and then White just gets lost in the trash. He's able to bounce it out the back door. You see the good block down the field from Josh Gordon, and White does the rest. A huge turnover, and Patriots able to capitalize down in the red zone.
Brady this week said he has got to get more involved, and indeed he is. Extra point by Gostkowski. 17-0 Patriots. 7.5 to go in the first half. We'll be back in 30 seconds after this from State Farm. James White is from Fort Lauderdale, played at St. Thomas Aquinas High School. He comes up against the team he used to root for, the Finns, with a nice 22-yard weaving touchdown run after the fumble by the quarterback of the Dolphins and the turnover. And the bad snap by the new center, Swanson, and Rich, there's an injury to Kilgore.
We just found out he injured his arm. Questionable return. It was his first play in. Ken, I didn't even notice Kilgore out of the game and Swanson in the game, and certainly have to think that had something to do with Tannehill not being able to handle that shotgun snap.
Grant. 2 yards deep, 3 yards deep to a knee. Touchback to the 25. So here comes Travis Swanson back in the game, and Kilgore, who they made a trade with San Francisco to get during the offseason. Of course, they had a pretty good center before Pouncey, but he's gone.
Well, you have to quickly be able to shift gears. It's not the kind of start they were hoping for, an opportunity to get some points on this drive and going to halftime with a little bit of confidence and momentum. Look, you got to play 4 quarters of football against the Patriots, and what you can't do on the road is turn the football over. Brady doesn't need any more help. Going to limit his opportunities on offense.
Swanson had 11 starts last year. He's been a starter most of his career. 1st and 10. Ryan Tannehill drilled as he throws. Incomplete downfield. Looking for Amendola. He was head over heels. It's 2nd down and 10.
You want to know why the Patriots win? This is, I think, the most telling graphic that you'll ever see. Look at this. The turnover margin since 2001. The Patriots are a plus 179. You look at the Packers, they're a plus 88. I mean, that's how significantly better they are at not only taking care of the football on offense with Brady, but also not taking it away on defense.
After the play was over, personal foul. Offense number 78. After distance to the goal line, it's 2nd down.
Starting left tackle, Laramie Tunsil.
Or extracurricular, you see Tunsil, he sees his quarterback go down, and he just, for some reason, totally not necessary, just pushes Lawrence Guy top of the pile.
How about Detroit last week, last Sunday night? They didn't punt for the first 3 quarters. They didn't punt until the 4th quarter. And today, this New England defense has forced 4 punts in 5 possessions for the Dolphins. 2nd and 22 in the pistol. Drake got by Van Noy, chased by McCourty, and then doused on the play by Lawrence Guy. Losing 2 on the play. Push it back to about the 12.
I really like Van Noy. The more I study him, he's the one that gets this thing started. He beats the block off the edge with the tackle. James, he forces this backside. You see the pursuit. You see all those blue jerseys. But you have to be able to set the edge with the back like Kenyon Drake. Force him to run up inside between those tackles. You cannot give him a 2-way go. And Van Noy is a very active player. He's just terrific on the edge.
7 defensive backs, 3rd and 24. They need the 35. Tannehill hit. They go underneath. This is Grant. And he's lassoed by Jonathan Jones. 9-yard catch and run, well shy of the first. The punting unit is back out there for Miami.
Well, Tannehill just 6 of 12. They've yet to convert a 3rd down. They're 0 for 5. A lot of them, Kevin, have been 3rd and 10 or longer. And the struggles they're having right now is they're not winning on the early downs. They're not finding a way to get the ball to Stills or to Wilson or to Grant.
So there's Patriot penetration. They look a lot faster today than they did on Sunday night.
And they're not beating man-to-man coverage.
Hawk, another low snap. Deep back, Cyrus Jones, flag. Jones on a bounce at the 31. Brought down on that one with a nice special teams play. Walt Aikens, reserve defensive back. I told you about the flag. 49-yard Hawk punt for the Dolphins, who come in 3-0 into this afternoon's game. One of the biggest surprises in the NFL for sure. Leading the East. They've already won a divisional game on the road in New York against the Jets a couple of weeks ago.
During the kick, personal foul, return team number 27 for blocking a player out of bounds. It's a 15-yard penalty. First down, New England.
Sometimes when you're struggling throwing the football, it helps to crank up the running game. The Patriots have done just that today. You look at Sony Michel, the production he had. 8 carries, 41 yards already in the first half. Obviously, James White, 6 for 38, including that 22-yard touchdown run. White is so effective in the passing game, but you forget about just how effective and productive he can be as a runner as well. Offensive line has played well so far for the Patriots. You haven't really talked a lot about Cameron Wake or Robert Quinn coming off the edge.
Michelle in the backfield into the nickel. Brady 1st and 10. Hit from behind and downfield for Gronkowski. Doubled, as Rich showed you in the early portion of the game. And at the top of the show, Fitzpatrick there defending along with McDonald.
You look at how they do this. They're going to play in and out with him. So McDonald knows that he has help over the top from Fitzpatrick, and it's very rare that you see number 87 running down the middle of the field or running a corner route where he's not double covered. That's why I think someone other than Gronkowski has to start making some plays for this Patriots offense, and a lot of it falls on the receivers. Just not enough production from that group so far this season.
He's got 2 receptions. Here goes Michel. Banged down the play initially by McMillan. Spins for 3 and put him at about the 18.
Just 35% of the Patriots offense has come by way of the wide receiver position. It's the 3rd lowest percentage in the NFL. Now you've got some new receivers, but prior to this game, just 230 yards of offense. That's the 2nd fewest. You look at, by comparison, what Brandon Cooks, Kevin, has done in Los Angeles. He's got over 450 yards himself.
White in the backfield. 5 in the secondary, 3rd and 7. Take to Patterson. Out to White. Got the 1st. Tackled on the play by Baker. Catch and run of 9 on 3rd and 7. And put him for a 1st down near the 26.
Well, you get so consumed with the speed coming this way from Patterson that you lose sight of the back. You see the good extension, the hand fake to Patterson. They run a lot of that end around. Plays that look the same but are different. You see James White so effective out of the backfield on 3rd down.
Last week, by the way, the Miami Dolphins rallied from a double-digit deficit to win at home against the Oakland Raiders. Here comes Sony Michel. Fitzpatrick has him. What a run by Michel. A 23-yard scamper near midfield. Put him at the 49. 1st down, New England.
Well, this is good to see if you're the Patriots. Your 1st-round pick out of Georgia. I think he's been a little tentative the first couple weeks, but now we're starting to see the speed and the elusiveness. The play speed is going to be important for Sony Michel. And this is what we saw so much of at Georgia. And you see the excitement. Just follow the fullback. You just look at Devlin's done a terrific job so far in this one, getting up on the 2nd level and blocking those linebackers.
1st and 10, Michel. Devlin the lead block. He hurdles and he's down to the 47-yard line. Hit by Alonso on a gain of 3.
I really like Sony Michel coming out of college. He's got good hands, but I think really what he can do is he can really take the place of Deion Lewis, who had just under 900 yards rushing last year. Look at that, 7.9 a carry for the Bulldogs. Obviously, the Patriots liked him. When talking to the staff for the Dolphins last night, even defensive coordinator Matt Burke said, we really studied him. We really liked Sony Michel coming out in the draft.
Former high school player of the year in the state of Florida. 2nd down and 7. White is in. They dump it off. First catch this season by the tight end Allen. And reading it well. Nice play there by Vincent Taylor. He led him in tackles on that defensive line last week. Throws him for a 4-yard loss. Allen has not been thrown to this entire season until right there.
It was a really good alert play by Taylor. Kevin, you mentioned he's rushing, and then he has the wherewithal to feel the fact that the tight end, Allen, lets him go easily, and so he falls off and plays the screen.
Nickel secondary, 3rd and 11. They need the 39 of Miami. Cannon, good right tackle block. Brady coming back with the catch. Torset's got the first down. Nice curl. Tackled by Baker. 13-yard pickup on 3rd and 11 and a first down for New England. But we have a hold, and it's also on Miami. Richie's going to his wide receivers today.
Holding. Defense, number 55. That penalty is declined. The result of the play is a first down. Please reset the game clock to 2 minutes, 29 seconds.
You look at Simon.
Start on my signal. Thank you.
Actually, you look at that's Baker, who's really played well in pass coverage. Jerome Baker, he's grabbing Gronk up the seam after the 5 yards.
Michelle in. 1st and 10. Sony wrapped up by the guy you were just talking about, Jerome Baker, a 3rd-round rookie out of Ohio State, and a gain at 2 down near the 35.
Kevin, I mentioned this earlier. I think last week's win over the Raiders came at a cost to the Dolphins defensive line. They lost 2 of their best run defenders. You know, Andre Branch not playing today because of a knee. He's out. William Hayes was placed on injury reserve because of a knee. And you look at the success that the Patriots have had running the football up inside against this Dolphins front.
Brady touchdown pass and a touchdown run by White.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Lowe's and by Verizon. The best unlimited is on Verizon, America's most awarded network.
Recently, some current and former Patriot players at the runway walked alongside women battling cancer in the New England area during an event put on by the Verma Foundation. 2-minute warning, 2nd down, 7, 9th play of the drive. Each team 3 timeouts. Brady slings one. Gronkowski covered by Raekwon McMillan, first-year starter.
I mentioned it earlier, given the fact that Brady's so willing to throw the football away. You know, he's not going to hold it. He's not going to take a sack or have a negative play. And you know, he's willing to move on and live for another down. And so many young quarterbacks, you watch them, they take the 2nd and 3rd hits. They hold the football. Nobody's open. And then something bad happens. They get a sack or the ball gets knocked out. Brady's got a terrific time clock.
3rd down and 7 for Brady. Into the nickel. He's got Gronkowski. Hit by Smith, 21-yard line, and that is a pickup of 14 on 3rd and 7. They've also got Michelle for a run of 23 and Dorsett for 13.
I think that the Dolphins are making a mistake not having someone line up on Gronkowski. This is where Brady wants to throw the football in the middle of the field. If it's not Gronk, it's the backs, but you're giving arguably the best receiving tight end in football a free release in the line of scrimmage. You go back and look at Detroit, you look at what Houston did in week 1. They doubled him as much as possible.
Michelle, 1st and 10. Gain of 3, riding him down. Woodard down to the 18-yard line. Verizon halftime being put together for you. JB and Company, scores, highlights, and news. The Verizon halftime from New York. Brady on 3rd down. Rich has been terrific. 3rd and 7 goes to White for 9. 3rd and 11 goes to Dorsett for 13. 3rd and 7 again. Gronkowski for 14 through the air.
They're doing a good job spreading the ball around. The other thing, Kevin, he's having some success getting the ball to the receivers.
Yes.
That's going to help him.
That looks like Harris is offsides. Looking for Gordon.
Offside. Defense, number 90. 5-yard penalty. It's still 2nd down.
Yep, with William Harris out and Andre Branch out now on that line. Harris becomes the 3rd defensive end. They caught him that time with the cadence of Tom Brady.
That was interesting in talking with Brady on Friday about Josh Gordon, how long it would take him to be comfortable in the offense. And Brady said it's takes a whole year to try to figure things out. You know, it's difficult without the offseason, the OTAs, the mini camp, the training camp, and so I'm certain Brady's really helping him in the huddle, reminding him of his assignments and responsibilities in the passing game.
Second down and 2, 12th play of the drive, Michelle. Devlin trying to block, and he does on Alonso. He still gets in there and shoves him down at the 11-yard line, close to a first down, with a tackle made by Jerome Baker. Taylor was there as well. Michelle running much better today.
Sometimes it takes a young back, Kevin, some time to figure things out. He missed a lot of time in the preseason, we know that, but I just think his play speed is noticeably different today. Not as tentative. He's hitting the holes quicker.
The 30 seconds, please.
Verizon halftime being put together. CBS Studios in New York right now. JB, Phil, Nate, Boomer, and Coach. Scores, news, highlights next on the Verizon halftime report. Rich, we have a 1-2 Belichick coached New England Patriot team. 1-2 for just the third time in the last 19 years that he's had this kind of record at this stage of the season.
Well, it's rare that this team loses 2 in a row, and you know that this was a very intense week of practice. When we visited with the players on Friday, I think they were relieved that Sunday was just around the corner.
3rd and 1. They come up short right there because there was a nice hit initially by Xavier Howard. Also a boot on there by Robert Quinn on that 3rd and 1.
Result of the play is a first down.
They get the first down. He got enough. He's 215 pounds at about 5'10", Rich. So he's kind of, he packs a punch, doesn't he, when he runs the ball. He's deceptively strong and thick.
Yeah, he's got some big legs, and he's a powerful runner. The thing I like about him, he's decisive. I mean, he's one cut, he's downhill. He's got a really good running back coach here, too. You look at the staff, and Ivan Fears has been a long-time assistant of Bill Belichick. I think he's one of the best running back coaches in all of football.
It's first down and goal to go. 6 of 9, by the way. 3rd downs today for New England. Came in number 29 in that category. They've been terrific on 3rd down. Here's a 1st and goal. Brady. Incomplete. White was trying to get free. There was coverage by Baker, then released and went down. Incomplete. 2nd and goal.
Sometimes the best play, the only play, is a throw it away, and that's, you know, you look at 1st and goal, you understand the situation in the game, and I think that's what Brady does. You know, he's never going to be able to solve problems with his feet and legs. Rather, he's got to be able to do it with his right arm and his brain.
This is 2nd trip in the red zone for Brady in the offense. This Miami defense is 3rd in red zone defense. Held him to a field goal last time. 2nd goal at the 9. Brady. Touchdown, what a catch! Dorsett.
Well, good route by Dorsett. He's angling to the post, and he's able to quickly put his foot in the ground and head back to the corner. And Xavier Howard has had a rough start to this one, Kevin. He's I thought was their best cover corner coming in, but he's having some problems with the speed of both Patterson and Dorsett.
9-yard touchdown pass. Extra point is through. Dorsett comes up with a big one. He's from Fort Lauderdale. He grew up a Finns fan. We'll be back in 30 seconds after this from Progressive Insurance. Dorsett, like we said, from Fort Lauderdale, played on that St. Thomas Aquinas team. On that 3rd down drive, orchestrated by Brady, who just threw his 2nd touchdown pass, Rich. They're 4 of 4 on 3rd downs. Again, they were 2nd to last, 3rd to last in 3rd down conversions through the first 3 weeks of the season.
Well, they've been so efficient in the first half. I look at the rushing differential. It's a big story, Kevin. The Patriots have 118 yards on the ground, whereas the Dolphins just 7.
And remember that Monday night game in December of last year, that's going to go in the end zone on the kickoff in a 25-yard begin position for Miami. They went 0 of 11 on 3rd downs in Miami that December game where the Dolphins beat Belichick and the Patriots And that was a game where Xavier Howard had 2 interceptions.
You just got the sense when you walked around the building and the practice field on Friday that this team was focused. They felt confident about the plan. Brady said, hey, look, if we can get through this week, we get Josh Gordon going a little bit, we get Julian Edelman back on Monday. I think they're feeling better about the running game. You look at the first half that Sony Michel has had. He's already has 77 yards rushing. And the play of the defense, to me, Kevin's been the big story in the first half. Did a much better job with their coverage schemes and making it difficult for Tannehill.
3 timeouts. That one's deflected at the line of scrimmage. They've been hit by Adam Butler, who's platooning on that line with Lawrence Guy for the New England Patriots. Well, I think the Patriots, Rich, have sent a pretty loud and resounding noise of where they thought they were going to be. But we've seen this before, haven't we, in September? They've been down, and they've come back with vengeance.
Well, I do know this. They've gone 252 games without a 3-game losing streak. So it's you know, it's interesting in talking with Dante Hightower last night. He said, sometimes I get confused when we come in after a win. We feel like we've lost by 40. But can you imagine what it was like this week around that facility? And these guys were coached up this week for sure.
2nd down and 10. We have a Tannehill throw underneath. He goes to his rookie tight end, Gesicki. Mike Gesicki out of Penn State. He is a pass-catching tight end, and he spins around. 9-yard gain. 5 seconds to go.
Miami.
Remember a couple years ago when the Patriots lost on a Monday night in Kansas City in 2014, and the big Belichick thing was, hey, it's on to Cincinnati. It's on to Cincinnati. Well, the coach, the defensive coordinator for Miami, was on that Cincinnati staff. So Matt Burke was telling us last night, he goes, I know all about on to Cincinnati and what to expect
what
today.
That means. Yeah. You remember the question that Coach Belichick was asked in the press conference, is it time to make a change at quarterback? And the look that Coach Belichick gave whichever reporter it was one to die for. And again, look, you know, they're not going to ever push the panic button. They go back to the drawing board, they go back onto the practice field, they make the corrections, and they work at their craft.
3rd down and 1. Underneath they go. This is Drake. He had the big game on that Monday night, getting the block from Grant, and works his way with no time remaining for 13 yards out near midfield. Last time, by the way, that was when you were the MVP of the NFL 2002.
Long time ago. Well, so, Adam Gase, you just got to get back in there, Kevin, make some adjustments. I think more importantly, they've got to figure out what to do on offense and move some people around and really give Tannehill some easy completions. They've got to find a way to get him back in rhythm on 1st down.
6 Miami possessions, 5 punts and a fumble, 2 Brady touchdown passes, and a 22-yard touchdown run by White. 24-0 New England. Halftime coming up next after this highlight from Verizon and a word from your local CBS station. 2 Tom Brady touchdown passes. You see the shutout being thrown by the Patriots against the Miami Dolphins. As we take a look at the first half highlight presented by DirecTV, this time Brady finds Patterson.
Yeah, 55-yard touchdown. They get picked. And again, the Patriots, prior to that big play there, had just 1 play of 20 yards or more down the field. They were really struggling getting the ball on the perimeter. And so I think that was a big story in the first half. Kevin, you look at the Dolphins and what they have to do to get back in this game. I mean, they need a flawless performance here in the second half. They can't afford any more missed assignments or mental errors or mistakes to Brady in this offense. I mean, you gotta take care of the football, and this Miami offense has to be able to crank it up to a respectable level.
Kickoff right here. Patterson will let it sail away and over his head.
Well, you look at what the Patriots were able to do in the first half on offense. I thought their ability to run the football, 118 rushing yards between Sony Michel and James White. And then off of that helps Brady in the play action game. And I just think that you look at Brady trusting the protection. You just see him working through his progression. He knows he's got one-on-one outside. A really good, accurate throw to Philip Dorsett in the back of the end zone.
1st and 10. And Sony Michel to about the 27. Gain of about 2 on the play. Steve Tasker's on our sideline.
Guys, I spoke with both coaches at halftime. Adam Gase obviously just said, listen, we need to get a big reset. We have got to find a way to get a stop on the Patriots. We can't let them go up and down the field. And offensively, just the opposite. We've got to be more productive on first and second down and find a way to stay on the field. And Bill Belichick said, we are really worried about their explosiveness. They've had the Dolphins down 31-7 in this building, and it came down to the last play. They remember that.
2nd down 8. Steve, thank you. Brady sidesteps the pressure. Downfield for a second time. It goes to the tight end, Dwayne Allen. He had the coverage from a linebacker, Jerome Baker. They've only thrown to him twice all season, both today incomplete.
As I study this Dolphins defense, Jerome Baker, he's a player that the Dolphins talked about last night. They really like the fact that he can match up in man-to-man on tight ends and backs and play in space. I think when you look at the Dolphins, they've got a lot more team speed, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side of the ball. You look at Baker and also their first-round pick, Minkah Fitzpatrick.
White is in. Brady on 3rd and 8, and he's going deep, and he's got him! Dropped. Dorsett. Coverage by Maurice Smith. Dorsett with the drops. He had a couple drops last week in Detroit.
Well, it all starts with great protection. I don't know that you can throw this one any better. I mean, that's right in the hands of Dorsett. He's got it for a moment. He's just not able to squeeze it. Well, that'll keep him up at night regardless of the outcome of this one. Got to be able to make that catch.
Ryan Allen to punt. Grant is back. And returnable from the 30-yard line. Hang a 4-2-3. Ebner got him first and then finished off with a tight end Allen. 44-yard punt, 11-yard return, setting up Ryan Tannehill. Missed all of last year with a blown knee in training camp. As we see some confusion after the play. A flag was not thrown. Tannehill said, and the coach Adam Gase said, that he probably drew himself closer to the coach and to his teammates by missing all of last year.
Is an eligible receiver, 79.
But certainly he has the respect of his teammates and his coaching staff. But Kevin, he's going to need a big second half. I always say in a critical situation, you got to think about players and not plays. They've got to find a way to get the ball to Stills down the field.
Gore was in, going for the tight end, Gesicki. That is incomplete. The coverage by Patrick Chung, who is back today after missing last week with a concussion.
Holding. Offense, number 70. 10-yard penalty. It's still 1st down.
Right tackle Jawan James.
Talked about Kyle Van Noy, and he's a handful. Jawan James, his feet weren't right, and before he knew it, Van Noy ran right by him. You think about this offense, Kevin. I mentioned you got to think about players and not plays in critical situations. Kenny Stills just 2 catches in the first half. Jakeem Grant just 1 catch. Albert Wilson's only touched the ball twice for 5 yards. Amendola just 1 reception. Got to find ways to get these guys some touches early here in the second half.
Gore is in, 1st and 20. Frank Gore. Van Noy to the 36 with a gain of 6.
There just hasn't been any production on 1st down, and you look at the penalties, that's been a big story as well. I always liked Frank Gore, Kevin. He just runs with an attitude. You know, he's physical, he's a finisher. He doesn't look or run like a 35-year-old back. He still breaks a lot of tackles. Problem is, when you're behind by 24, it limits his effectiveness.
2nd down 14, 5 in the secondary. Swanson remains the center. Wilson was in the backfield, gets 2. That's one of their gadget plays. They bring the receiver back there. He can play all over the joint. He's up to the 38.
Got a kick out of Ryan Tannehill last night. He was talking about Albert Wilson throwing the football. And so the first time we ran that end around where he threw the ball to Jakeem Grant, he said he threw a perfect strike, and he did it every time they ran it in practice. You know, Adam Gase said Albert Wilson's built like a running back that just happens to play wide receiver. Excellent speed and quickness. He can do so many things.
High school quarterback. 7 in the secondary, 3rd and 12. They need midfield. Brought down by Adam Butler. first sack by the New England D.
Well, look, this has been a big story. This is all press man-to-man coverage across the board. You just go ahead and freeze it right here. Where's Brady supposed to, or Tannehill supposed to throw the football? I mean, this is a coverage sack. And this is what's happened through the first half of the football game. They aren't winning outside against the press man-to-man coverage. They're not creating enough separation and giving Tannehill a chance to throw the football.
Third career sack by Butler. Another punt coming up. The 6th in 8 possessions. Hawk. Flag, Cyrus Jones, 19-yard line, 4-7 on the hang. Brought down, 52-yard punt. Dolphins 3-0, undefeated. Last time they were 3-0 was 2013. That was under Joe Philbin. They finished 8-8.
During the kick, unsportsmanlike conduct. Kicking team, number 35, did not come immediately back in bounds. That's a 15-yard penalty that will be added to the end of the run. First down, New England. Timeout.
They're getting all over Tannehill now. They don't have a lot of sacks. It's only the 5th of the season, but it comes at a good time for New England. Patriots get it. Rich, the Patriots out of first place in this division since week 8. First time since 2002, week 8. Isn't that amazing to think? 1-2 record they come in.
Hey, 52.
After the Miami punt, 1st and 10. Brady coming up the middle. He dumps it off to White. Pushed out of bounds on the play by Maurice Smith. As James White can do it all, can he? A 39-yard catch and run. Flag is thrown on the play.
Holding. Offense number 62. 10-yard penalty. It remains first down.
Left guard Joe Tooney.
Well, this could have been a big play. Tooney's here. The hold doesn't occur until he gets outside on the defensive back, and right there he probably should just let go. He grabs a hold of Minkah Fitzpatrick. You see right there the right arm, and really wasn't necessary because White was already by him.
Steve?
Yeah, Bobby McCain, the cornerback for Miami, is not getting any better for those guys. He is out with a knee injury. He's been replaced by Torrey McTyer, number 24. You might think the Patriots going to notice that in a minute and maybe see if Torrey McTyer is up to snuff.
Interesting. Of course, McCain was the guy that was going down with the knee, and people thought he might have been faking. Spot foul, 1st and 16. Michel in. Sony Michel doubling the block. Got him from behind. Nice play once again. There is no gain, and Vincent Taylor once again there. He was a 6th-round pick out of Oklahoma State a season ago.
We look at the production that they've had on offense today. 278 yards really in the first half. You look, but really to me, it's the fact that they're finally getting the ball down the field some and outside the numbers to the wide receivers in the passing game. Patterson's got a couple catches. Dorsett's got 3 catches, including a touchdown. Josh Gordon's got a catch.
Brady's gone wide. Wildcat. Back to Brady from White. With time underneath. White. Kiko Alonso makes the stop. Got some help from Jordan Phillips. Gain of 9 on the play. They'll put him at the 43.
We saw him run this at practice on Friday. Brady's here. He's going to motion back or come back into the backfield after the direct snap to White. And then you lose track of White, and White just kind of runs back out into the flat. A little trickery on the part of the Patriots. You gotta know something's up when you see Brady lined up at wide receiver.
In the nickel, 3rd and 7.
Here Brady says, what do you got, David? Talking to his center, Andrews. The communication takes place between the quarterback and center.
Cannon the block at the right tackle. He's got Rob Gronkowski. Catch number 4, and Gronkowski becomes the all-time leading tight end receiver, surpassing Ben Coates in Patriot history. Gain of 9 on 3rd and 7.
Well, you look, they've got T.J. McDonald lined up on him, but you see the fact Gronk's able to get off clean. It's fun visiting with Gronkowski on Friday. He's got so much energy, and Got a great personality, loves competing, loves playing this game, and
he loves a lot of things. 1st and 10. Michel, slippery Sony Michel. He takes it inside the 40 and snakes his way for 7 as we sneak our way to New York. And here's James Brown.
And a nice return to action.
That's right. It's not a matter of if, but whence. And there it is. Alshon Jeffrey keeping it PC. That's post corner. 17-3. The Eagles, I believe.
It's a matter of what now?
Matter of not if, but whence.
All right, back to Kevin Harlan.
2nd down and 3. Dorsett, he's slippery, and he runs for the 1st down after the catch. Fitzpatrick ushers him out of bounds. He'll be near the 20, and he picks up 20 yards on the catch and run.
what did Steve Tasker just say? They're going to find Torrey McTyer and go after him, and that's just what they did. They throw a little stork route out to Dorsett, and McTyer not able to come up and make the tackle.
A stork route, what's that?
It's a little 1-yard, a shorter hitch. A hitch is typically at 6. You run a little stork or a stop route right at the line of scrimmage. It's another way to get the ball on the perimeter to these receivers.
Nice run after the catch. Coming into today, Patriots were 29th in yards after receptions. Last year, 8. White in, 1st and 10. He'll climb his way to about the 19-yard line and hit on the play by Alonso with a gain of 2.
I look at how the Patriots have run the football, and I look at the injury report and the fact that Rashad Jones isn't playing, Kevin. He is such a difference maker.
Yes.
You think about the fact that he had 122 tackles last season, led all NFL safeties, and just not having a lot of success with the safety force down around the line of scrimmage.
White on 2nd down and 8. Broke 1 and goes for 4. With a stop initially by Robert Quinn, former Ram, down to the 14.
This offensive line of the Patriots has done a nice job. You know, we don't talk a lot about them, but Brown and Tooney, Andrews, Mason, Cannon. I think they're better collectively than they are individually. They play well as a unit. A nice job protecting the edges. We haven't really talked about Cameron Wake at all today or Robert Quinn. They've been quiet.
Brady on 3rd down and 4. Looks into the Miami nickel. Hit as he throws. He's got him. White! White, his 2nd touchdown today. Brady with his 3rd touchdown pass. He's thrown more after turning 40 than any other quarterback in pro football history.
Well, sometimes you got to be willing to sit in there and take a hit. You look at Brady, he knows he's going to get hit, but he just flicks this one up in the corner of the end zone for James White. I mean, what a terrific throw under duress.
Gostkowski will make it 31-0. Wow. James White. He's some kind of player. Hauls one in. Brady took the hit, but got the 6.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Honda. Awarded Best SUV Brand by U.S. News. Sonic. This is how you Sonic. And by NFL Sunday Ticket, only on DirecTV.
Well, left tackle Matt Light inducted into the Patriot Hall of Fame, Rich. 11 straight winning seasons, 9 division titles, 5 AFC titles, and 3 Super Bowl wins for him.
He was a good player. They drafted him in 2001. Coach Belichick said they actually moved up in the draft to get him. They're worried about the Jets taking him. He's a great leader, a teammate, and just a real prankster in the locker room, even with Coach Belichick, but really a tough guy. He was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, had surgery, really had to work to maintain his size and strength as a result.
Akeem Brand out of bounds about the 24 and a 26-yard return. Our 2 quarterbacks today, Tannehill and Brady.
Well, it hasn't been close. You know, Brady does look like the Brady of old. You look at 3 touchdowns. Ryan Tannehill just 8 of 15 for 68 yards. They just simply can't get anything going. I think the biggest issue has been their lack of production on first down, whether it's run or pass. They've fallen behind in the down and distance, and they've been awful on third down, just 1 of 7. I'm really surprised, Ken. I really felt like this would be a close game. The offense came in with a lot of momentum.
180!
Tannehill 1st and 10. He's got Amendola. He was tackled on the play by Roberts. A catch and run of 19. That is a 1st down to the 42.
Well, Amendola, this is where he's at his best, working in the middle of the field. He's averaged over 10 yards a catch in each of the last 3 seasons. He's a guy that can move the chains. And again, to find ways to get Amendola and Stills and Grant, Wilson some more touches on 1st down.
Nickel secondary, 1st and 10. Gore remains in the game. And Tannehill to the sideline. It is incomplete. Looking for his angular tight end, Mike Gesicki.
A good look at Danny Amendola, what he's meant to Tom Brady. You know, you talk to Brady about the struggles they've had, and he's one of the first guys he mentions is Amendola. Happy for him, but he misses him. You look at that production, and had a great visit with Danny Amendola last night. He said he used to live in Providence, out where we're staying, about 18 miles from the stadium here. He said he was never late for work, although he was pulled over probably a half dozen times. But he said he never got a ticket. Apparently, the law enforcement officials here in this area are big Patriot fans.
Grant goes in the backfield, 2nd and 10. Tunsil the block at the left tackle.
Good catch.
It was a good catch. All hands there by Albert Wilson, the former Chief. 13-yard pickup, 1st down. Put him at the 45 of New England.
Like I mentioned earlier, Albert Wilson can do so many things. He can run it, he can catch it, he can throw it, he can play in the wildcat, reverses, gadgets. Good concentration, holding on to the football.
Upcoming is going to be the 2nd play that Miami has run in Patriot territory this afternoon. Six defensive backs. Tannehill deep and looking for Wilson. Intercepted. Picked off by J.C. Jackson, a rookie free agent from Maryland. Played for the first time last week and just picked off Ryan Tannehill.
Well, these corners have really played well. You see Jackson matched up down the bottom of the screen. He does a terrific job getting his head around and high pointing this football.
2nd turnover by Miami.
Well, back here in New England, not a lot to talk about when you look at this Miami offense today. A bunch of 3-and-outs. They're demoralizing to an offense and a couple turnovers to boot.
1st down and 10, Sony Michel. With the tackle made by Jerome Baker. Tumbling his way, rolling his way to the 19. 9-yard pickup. Steve Tasker's on our sideline.
Guys, during that last series, Rob Gronkowski left the field for the Patriots. He was stuck on the bench for a minute as he got examined. Then they took him to the locker room. He's got an ankle injury and his return is questionable.
Thank you. He becomes the all-time leading Patriot tight end receiver, passing Ben Coates. Michel, on the other hand, has had 19 carries. Rich, he's closing in on 100 yards. He's got 98. 2nd and 2. The rookie Michel. Just from behind brings him down.
Excuse me, Kevin. Just to pay off the Gronkowski injury, he had an ankle he was nursing last week. Not sure it's the same one, but regardless, up 31-0. It really doesn't make any sense to have him play the rest of this game. You got to be smart. It's one of the benefits of when you have a big lead at home. Get him out of the game. Get Dwayne Allen in there.
Godshaw makes that last stop. 3rd down 3.
How about Brady? This 8 of 11 on 3rd down.
Into the nickel. Tom Brady. Gordon. Oh, he's slippery in there. He goes. For the 1st down, they're excited about the 6'3" wide receiver Gordon out there for a first time today. 19-yard catch and run on a 3rd and 3. Put him at the 43.
Well, look at the cushion that you give a guy like Josh Gordon. And the thing that I love is his willingness to go inside. He's big, he's strong, he's got those long arms, and he can pluck the ball out of the air, and he's terrific after the catch. You see Brady, he knows how much Josh Gordon can help this offense. Brady, 9 of 12 on 3rd down. 8 have gone for 1st downs. He's hit 6 different receivers.
Maurice Smith is down. We have an injury timeout and 3:42 to play here in the third from Foxborough.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Verizon. The best unlimited is on Verizon, America's most awarded network. And by McDonald's.
This past week, the New England Patriots and the Kraft Family Foundation donated $10,000 to the football program of Central High in Providence, as well as the Dennis C. Haley Pilot School in Roslindale, Massachusetts. Out of the backfield, Patterson tripped over his own feet. Yep, Harris was there to touch him, and down he goes, losing 4 on the play, back near the 32. He's already caught a 55-yard touchdown pass, a twirling two-handed open grab that he made a great cut and raced. That's what he does so well.
He had some space too. He just got his feet tangled up and went right to the ground.
Brady has thrown 3 touchdown passes. White has 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground and 1 through the air. Second down, 14, White. Andrews with the block. Mason with the block and sifting his way through Torrey McTire out near the 40-yard line. Pickup of 8.
Well, James White's had a great day. You look at not just what he's done on the ground, 44 rushing yards, but terrific out of the backfield. 7 catches for 52 yards. He's been their leading receiver coming into today's game, and we talked about it in the first quarter. You better have a plan for how you're going to account for James White in the passing game, especially on third down. Very effective out of the backfield as you see him motion back in.
Third down and 6 for Tom Brady. Incomplete.
That'll be a hold.
It will be. It'll be on Fitzpatrick watching the receiver, Chris Hogan.
He got himself out of position on Hogan as Hogan was starting to the post and worked back to the corner.
Defense, number 29. The ball is placed at the spot of the foul. Automatic first down.
Just watch the left arm. Just grabs the hold of the hip of Hogan.
Hogan's used to that, though. He was a lacrosse player at Penn State. Played there 4 years. Then went to go play some college football at Monmouth. Hogan did. 17-yard penalty. Michelle trying to go over 100. Still short and brought down by Cameron Wake. McTire there, gain of 2. He's up to 98 yards. He was at 98, lost 2. Now he's back up to 98.
Well, I really like what I've seen from Sony Michel today, Kevin. I talked about the speed and the quickness, but it seems like he's getting more and more comfortable with this offense and really with each and every carry. And he's a guy that can handle the volume, the workload.
47. 18.
End around, Patterson, second down and 8. He got by one defender, and he's got a block there from Allen, the tight end, and out of bounds. He was almost captured by Robert Quinn, but he got by him, breaks that, goes for 11, and takes the ball down to the 30-yard line of Miami.
Well, Quinn's in position. He just misses the tackle. And the thing about Patterson is you don't realize just how strong he is. He's 225 pounds. You're not going to get him on the ground with an arm tackle.
They've gone to him twice today through the air. First and 10.
52. 18.
Shell again. Grabbed on the play by McMillan. 1 yard gain, 99 yards down to the 29.
You have to wonder if the Patriots were able to come away with points on this drive, Kevin, if we'll see Tom Brady in the fourth quarter. It may make some sense to get him out of there like you got Gronk out and put Brian Hoyer in there at some point.
Here's a look at Belichick. If they go on to win, he'll become the 3rd coach in NFL history to record 280 career wins, regular season and playoffs combined. 2nd and 9. And it looks like he's over 100. Picks up 2 right there. He's down to the 27-yard line. Sony Michel. from Plantation, Florida. Running against his hometown Miami Dolphins today. 3 touchdown passes by Brady. Let's go to the 4th. You're watching the NFL on CBS. Look at the numbers right there. Brady, the 3 touchdown passes. White with a couple touchdowns himself. And for one of the few times today, Kenyon Barner, who was re-signed this week after being released, is in the game. 3rd and 6, the former Eagle. And that's going to go off to White. He's going to run outside and go to the 10. So he gets the catch and run of 16. And he's down to the 10. That should be a goal-to-go situation for New England.
Just watch the center get out in front of this Andrews, and then he's just going to come out and curl back around. The screen game has been very effective against this Miami front 7. And they have a bunch of them. A lot of them come off a misdirection. They'll have action one way, and then White will slide out the back door.
1st and goal. Michelle is in. It's about the 9. Godshaw among a couple with a gain of 1.
Well, it's all about production, and James White has had a busy day for the Patriots. A big touchdown run here of 22 yards in the first half. Made a big catch in the back corner of the end zone off of a great throw by Brady as he was getting hit in the pocket, and talked about his versatility, not just as a runner and as a receiver, but as a guy that can sit in there and block for Brady as well in pass protection.
2nd goal. Brown a block, and Sony Michel has just scored his first NFL touchdown on a 100-yard rushing day, as the Patriots are pounding Miami.
Well, this is really nice. Watch Trent Brown. Think about how athletic he is. He's going to get out in front of this and then he just run the toss around. But watch Brown. Watch him pull and get the critical kick-out block on the corner, Xavier Howard. You like those big tackles that can get out and run and play in space.
Chad Finn had a story in the Boston Globe this week about how people were saying maybe he's a bust, some kind of bust. He's got his legs in his 3rd NFL game. Extra point by Gostkowski is in. He's going to hold on to that ball. He's got a touchdown. He's got a 100-yard game, and he's leading the Patriots today along with White and Brady. Michel is over 100 yards on the ground. He missed the entire preseason and a lot of training camp with the knee injury. But he has been the feature back the last 3 weeks. Didn't play week 1, and he has really played well today against that Miami D with 100 yards on the ground, 112 to be exact. Rich, we just saw a 10-yard touchdown run.
You mentioned all that time he missed in the preseason, all those valuable reps for a young player. And I mentioned before the kickoff, he just hadn't been playing with a lot of confidence. He hadn't seen the play speed, but today it's been a much different story with Sony Michel.
Ryan Tannehill is back out there for Miami. This has got to be so disappointing. The stories this week in the Herald and the Sun Sentinel down in the South Florida area were just full of, could this be it? Is this the real time? How would they handle success? How would they handle this center stage in bright light? And the score tells you what the critics have said. But it is a long season. We're just out of September after today. 1st and 10. Tannehill. Wilson. He was hit on the play by linebacker Dante Hightower with a gain of 1. And also getting in there was Jonathan Jones.
Well, the Dolphins had so much momentum coming into this game. When we talked about Tannehill hit 110 of his last 11 starts, but they got off to a slow start. They fell behind. The turnovers, the penalties started to pile up, and you can't do that on the road in the division against a good team that's got a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Tom Brady.
Gore is in, 2nd down and 9. Frank Gore with a gain of 1. Miami, Rich, has been relying on so many chunk plays as a part of their 3-0 start. They've had only 1 play today over 20 yards.
Well, I can tell you that people are going to watch. You look at what Miami has next, Kevin. They've got Cincinnati. Will be there next week. And look, the Bengals are going to do the same thing that the Patriots did. They're going to press, play man-to-man coverage. They're going to make Tannehill make contested throws into tight windows. They haven't done a good job today of getting the ball down the field or in the perimeter. They're not winning against man-to-man coverage.
6 defensive backs, 3rd down and 8 for Ryan Tannehill. He's grabbed. Simon and others. They just signed John Simon off the street this week. Played for Romeo Crennel and Vrabel down in Houston. They just signed him, and he comes in. He replaces the injured Jawan Bentley, who went on IR after an injury last week.
Well, look, you look at they're running these crossing routes. The Patriots passed it off, and Tannehill was getting ready to throw it to the left flat, but there was nowhere to go. I mean, they've done a good job with the rush. Mostly, Kevin, it's been 3- and 4-man pressures. It's not like they bring 5 and 6 to get to Tannehill. There's just been nowhere to throw the football down the field.
Simon, the former Big Ten Player of the Year at Ohio State. Letting it bounce. Cyrus Jones. Hit by a couple on the play. 5-yard return, 45-yard punt. The Patriots are zeroing in on getting back to 500, reclaiming their season.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Control GX, the first shampoo that gradually reduces gray. Domino's. Order online at Domino's.com. And by Ram Trucks.
Good look inside the CBS Sporting Club, opened this past summer here at Patriot Place, a vision of Bob Kraft after a multifaceted renovation of what was previously known as the CBS scene. A lot of teams now are doing that, trying to make like mini NFL cities. Here's Barner on 1st and 10. And jumping on his back, it's Alonso. It's a gain of 4 on the play, and he's up to the 47-yard line. Kenyon Barner, he was on that Super Bowl champion Philadelphia team last year. Out of Oregon, All-American there, 6th-round pick, signed this week. Originally a 6th-round pick by the Carolina Panthers.
And he can help them. He's an experienced guy. He was in training camp with Carolina. Was with the Patriots, I think, a couple of weeks ago for a week.
2nd down and 6. Right on the screws. Here goes Hogan. Fitzpatrick will push him out of bounds. The catch and run. Take him inside the 30 down to the 28-yard line. It is a gain of 26.
Well, there's a reason why the Patriots used their 18th pick in the draft to go out and get Sony Michel. I mean, just looking to make defenders miss. At times he was like a man among boys in college. I asked our crew last night, is that was a high school team? That was actually the Tennessee Volunteers he was doing that against. But I think he can really help this offense. And you think about, this is an offense that obviously throws the ball a lot, but to be able to have a guy that can come in there and pound the rock at you, and I think get stronger as the game goes on. Certainly, Sony Michel can, I think, pick up the slack in some of the production that they lost when they lost Deion Lewis this offseason.
Kenyon Barner just lost 4 yards, so now it'll be 2nd down and 14. He remains in the game. Brady drilled, intercepted by Minka Fitzpatrick. His first in his career, which will be long and good, and he was brought down by Cordero Patterson.
You know, sometimes I don't understand.
Brady was hit, huh? He was really hit hard.
Yeah, sometimes I don't understand, Kevin, when you're up 38-0 in the 4th quarter with under 10 minutes to go, why your 19-year veteran quarterback who's 41 years old is still in the football game. I know Peyton Manning did a lot of this. Tom Brady does a lot of it. You see the left knee brace there. At some point, I think you got to use some common sense and get Brian Hoyer in there. Let him hand the ball off 10 or 15 times here in the 4th quarter and get out of here.
It was Godjaw who came up the middle and drilled him.
I think I'd get Tom Brady.
That was the alarm, right? Huh?
I'd get Brady a Patriots ball cap and have him put it on and watch the rest of this one.
Brady picked off for the 2nd time today.
Mark 50! Mark 50!
Gore in, 1st and 10, Tannehill.
180!
Well, there's a new quarterback. It's Brock Osweiler in the game.
Well, that's the other point.
Excuse me. Yeah, Brock Osweiler is in. No gain. Now I think he got 2. As he's submarined his way in there for a couple out to the 27-yard line.
This makes perfect sense as well, Kevin. I mean, why keep Tannehill in the game? You're down 38-0. Get Brock Osweiler some reps. You just never know when you might need him. But I've seen it happen too many times. You leave a quarterback in the game in a kind of a, there's Hoyer going to warm up, but in a meaningless game, and then someone rolls into his knee or He gets dumped, he gets a concussion. It's just not worth it.
First action for Osweiler is a Miami quarterback. There goes Gore, and 2nd down and 8, and Submarines to about the 32. Gaining 5.
Officials timeout.
Player down for New England, and that is their defensive lineman Adam Butler, who's got a sack today. Injury timeout, 9:06 to play. A shutout being thrown by the Patriots at the Dolphins this afternoon. Adam Butler has got the sack today for the New England Patriots, walking off under his own power. He'll be examined. He's an offensive lineman by trade, going into Vanderbilt, and then he switched over freshman year to the defensive line. Now a Patriot. Bill Belichick went out there and shook his hand and thanked him for a good day's work. 3rd down and 3. Osweiler. Out there to Gore. Grigsby couldn't bring him. Chung does, and down he goes. Gain of 10 and a 1st down for Miami at the 42. Sam Young is now playing the right tackle for the Dolphins. Well, he's here in Omaha. There's a 1st and 10. Of course, he played at Denver. Osweiler did. There's a gain of 1. Gore. They did here in Omaha. Which, of course, Gase would have brought over when he was with Manning at Denver.
Yeah, obviously Adam Gase spent some time with Josh McDaniels on that staff. And so obviously Adam spent some time with the defensive staff this week talking about philosophy and principles and concepts and how the Patriots may choose to attack the Dolphins on defense. Adam says he watches a little bit of the quarterbacks, the opposing quarterbacks each week, so that he can make a presentation to the defensive staff and team on Fridays.
Into the nickel, 2nd down and 9, Osweiler. Got a lot of starts in his resume, and that's incomplete.
It's the McCourty brothers in coverage.
Yeah, that's right, Devin and Jason, as they were going deep that time for Kenny Stills.
A good look at Devin, and he was excited to welcome his twin brother Jason to the team, and got a kick out of talking to Devin on Friday. He said, Coach Belichick still can't tell us apart, nor can Robert Kraft, the owner. He said they were at practice one day. They both had sleeves on, and Coach Belichick was trying to make a correction with Jason. He started yelling at Devin, and Devin said, "You got the wrong guy."
Kenyon Drake is in, 3rd and 9. Claiborne was coming around the wing. Here comes Osweiler.
Whoa.
Oh, my goodness. He just put his head down and dug his way close to the 1st, but shy by a yard. Picking up 7, 49 in New England. Back to New York, and here's James Brown.
A 51-yard pass play. Mariota to Corey Davis sets this up.
Yep, empty backfield. Watch the Sharp route up the seam. I'm talking literally. That's Tajay Sharp up the seam. Tennessee, they take the lead 20-17.
Kevin, Rich, and Steve.
Mariota's been banged up. He had some numbness in his fingertips, Rich.
Yeah, well, that injured, the elbow was causing some numbness in the fingers, Kevin, of his passing hand. It must have healed up. That's a pretty good throw by Marcus Mariota.
4th down and 2 for Osweiler. Gore back there, and he slings a shot which is caught by Still. He's got the 1st down and drives into Grigsby, and picks up yardage to the 39, picks up 11 on 4th and 2, 1st down.
Well, Jason McCourty's in position. He just doesn't get any part of that ball. Just paying off the McCourty brothers, Kevin. Devin said he texted Coach Belichick in the offseason in March. He said, hey, 2 McCourtys are better than 1. And shortly thereafter, the Patriots decided to sign Jason, and it's been a good pairing back there. Obviously, these guys talk all the time. They live across the street from one another. Their mom loves it. She can come in and visit the.
There is no foul on the play. The result of the play is a 1st down for Miami.
I don't even think Belichick responded. And someone here said, I guess you ghosted him. And Belichick go, what?
Yeah, right. He just look. The thing about Belichick is he likes smart players, right? You look at, how productive Devin McCourty has been, and then to be able to go out and get a guy like Jason, who's a guy that can come in, learn the system's a great communicator, and it's important to him.
Osweiler And this is a run right here by Balaj. Kalen Balaj. He picks up 2 yards on the play and brought down by Simon down to the 36-yard line. Kalen Balaj is a rookie out of Arizona State. He was the 3rd fastest running back in the draft combine. Gore back in.
You get him a jersey that fits.
Yeah.
Pull that over that shoulder pad there. Usually the officials will do that, or one of the equipment guys on the sidelines. There you go.
Second down and 7 with Gore.
Mike 50, Mike 50. Yep.
Wilson went one way, and Osweiler goes the other to Grant. Jumping on his back is Jones. Jonathan Jones. That's close to a first down. They get down to about the 29. It's a gain of 8, and 2nd and 7. It is a first down.
You know, Jakeem Grant's been a good story so far for the Dolphins. And talking to Tannehill last night, he said this guy's really put in the time and the work. You know, he spent a couple days a week in the offseason throwing with Tannehill. He's really worked at his craft to become a better and more consistent route runner. And they're finding ways to get him the ball. He's playing a lot more on offense.
Gore in, 1st and 10.
Good looking hole there.
Blocked by Young. Look at Gore dig his way into the grasp of Jones. 14-yard run down to the 14-yard line in New England. Frank Gore.
You get a good block by the right tackle. Nice job by the rookie tight end. Gesicki gets a kick-out block, and then Frank Gore does the rest. We're talking to Adam Gase.
Throw, huh?
Yeah, he said, you look at how he ran last year behind that offensive line of the Colts. And he said he was convinced that he still had a lot left in the tank. That was not a very good offensive line, and yet he still found a way to crank out the yardage.
9 1,000-yard seasons, tackled there by Guy, and a gain of 5 by Gore inside the 10.
Well, you look at all great running backs. You've got to have strength, stamina, and endurance. And I really think that's really what has helped make this guy such a special player. You look at career rushing attempts. You look at the consecutive games started. You look at the endurance. 171 career games where he's led his team in rushing. Obviously the 4th all-time leading rusher in NFL history. You don't do that without being a tough guy. A guy that can go out there and play when he's not 100%.
He's 35. Better than some 25. 2nd down and 5. Still continues to dig with a tackle by Landon Roberts with a gain of 3.
The other thing that Adam Gase said about Frank Gore is you look at the number of broken tackles that he has had and yards after contact. He said those numbers have actually gotten better for Frank Gore over the last couple of years. You think about guys slowing down when you get to be 35 years old. Not a lot of 35-year-old running backs in football. You know, you think about that, Kevin. It says a lot about Frank Gore. I don't know how old Adrian Peterson is off the top of my head, but he's having a great season for the Washington Redskins when not a lot of teams wanted to give him a chance.
Landon Roberts, as you can see, the player they're looking at right now. Adam Butler went down. We don't have a word on Butler. Look at Roberts, 3rd-year player out of Houston. Gore has been a 5-time Pro Bowler. We know he began with great success in San Francisco and then went to the Colts, as you were talking about, Rich. He was there for 3 years. But they talk about the example he sets in the locker room, in the weight room, in his conditioning, and more than anything else, his professionalism. They say he is the consummate professional.
Well, at that position, you've got to be able to take care of your legs. And there's so many stories about Frank Gore coming in on a Monday after a game and going out on the field and running hundreds and striders and doing those type of things. I always say it's about strength, stamina, endurance at that position. And this is what he's been about. He's taken really good care of himself, and that's why you still see him out there on the field.
Adrian Peterson, by the way, is 33.
Well, see, you beat me to it. I was getting ready to look it up.
See, you know, I don't have
33.
to look it up. Yeah, no. Just keep it in my notes. That's not a good sign there. Roberts gingerly off the field. Well, they got Flowers back today. They got Chung back today. They thought did not have Rowe. Rowe is still out But they got those two guys back. Flowers might be the best defensive player they have. And although we have not called his name, he has, and Chung we've called many times. They've had their fingerprints on this defensive performance.
Yeah, Flowers has led the team in sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. And you look at last week against the Lions, they were without Eric Rowe and Patrick Chung, so they've got one of them back, and I think there's a good chance that you could see Eric Rowe next week.
Rowe's got a groin injury. 3rd down and 2. Gore is in. He's going to face McCourty and bulldoze him and take it in for 6 for Miami. And the shutout's gone. 6-yard touchdown reception for 35-year-old Frank Gore. 18th of his career.
Good throw by Oswald. He has to get it over the linebacker. This is a tough tackle for McCourty, because if you try and tackle this guy up high, look at him just take that left arm and just put it right in the face of Devin McCourty. You got to work on trying to tackle him down around the thigh board.
13-play, 75-yard drive. What'd you just say?
Thigh board. It's a football term. Specifically as it relates to tackling in the open field. You talk about the thigh board, the outside thigh. Go down there and tackle him low. You can't tackle Frank Gore up around the shoulders. Look how strong. Look at those shoulder pads and those arms.
He's from Florida. He's from the Miami area.
Oh, yeah, he's a Hurricane.
Of course, he played with the University of Miami. Coming up next, most of you are going to see Drew Brees coming off an exciting overtime winning touchdown and setting the NFL's career completion record, leading New Orleans in the battle against the New York Giants. Others will see San Francisco take on the Chargers. That's coming up next on this doubleheader Sunday on CBS, the home of Super Bowl 53. Let's take a look at Brady and his touchdown passes, 3 today. Brees right and back.
Well, that's going to be a horse race to the finish. You look at where Brady is at 497, Brees at 496. That's a great list to be on. A lot of production out of Tom Brady over the years, Kevin, and he's a special player. Doesn't miss starts, and you know, he's shown great patience when you think about that, because there's been so much change around him. You know, at the running back position, you've got a rookie back there in Sony Michel. They've had so many changes at wide receiver, and yet he still finds a way to go out there and get completions and ultimately win football games.
So if you're Miami and you come in with the undefeated record, 1 of 3 in pro football, you've won by no more than 8 in those 3 previous games. What are you taking out of this game today?
I think you have to quickly turn the page. Obviously, it's been a disappointing performance. You can't come up here and get off to a slow start and turn the football over. But the good thing is they're 3-1, and you know, this is still a good football team. I think you go back, you make the corrections. This is a team that came in with a lot of momentum, but they've got to find a way to look at this tape on offense and say, hey, look, we didn't do a good job on the early downs, and we didn't do a good job throwing the football on the perimeter.
Hoyer to Barner. Alonzo jumps on him from behind. Makes the tackle, 36-yard line, 13-yard run. So Brian Hoyer, 32-year-old, 10-year quarterback out of Michigan State. We've watched him a lot, Rich. He's had some starting opportunities in his career as well.
And this is a good player, Kevin. You know, here's a guy that can step in at a moment's notice. He doesn't need reps in practice, and he can help you win football games. And when you have a team that's built to win, and you've got a quarterback that's 41 years old, you need a veteran backup that can come in and function. And certainly Brian Hoyer can do that.
2-minute warning. New England is going to go to 2-2. Miami's going to drop their first game of the season.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by State Farm. Here to help life go right. And by Bud Light, enjoyed by giant blue fictional knights everywhere.
Great to be in New England. Great autumn day. Good house, and the Patriots showing a lot. We're going to give you bonus coverage after this one here in Foxborough. Atlanta and Cincinnati tangled in a beauty with a little over 5 to play down in Atlanta. Brady today, 3 touchdown passes, 2 picks. Talking with Josh McDaniels.
You know, when you've been in the system as long as they have, and you have some problems, you quickly know how to fix them. You know, that's when problems arise. You've been in this system, you've been down this road before, and I think that's what we saw really on both sides of the ball today from this Patriots offense and their defense.
Hoyer in the victory formation. Stay tuned for the NFL Today update delivered by Pizza Hut, time permitting. JB, Phil, Nate, Boomer, and Coach Bill Cowher for the latest NFL scores and news and highlights. Brady today, 274 yards. Sony Michel, 112 on the ground and a touchdown run of 10. White had 2 touchdowns on the ground and another reception.
You know, Brady's such a perfectionist, Kevin. 23 of 35, 3 touchdowns, but the 2 interceptions will just drive him crazy tonight as he's relaxing and having dinner and watching football. It's just...
Bill Belichick is going to become the 3rd coach in NFL history to record 280 wins in his career, regular season and playoffs. And they have just beaten the undefeated Miami Dolphins, who lose this one and go to 3-1, and New England goes to 2-2, the exact same record they began last season with. And then they went 11-1 after the 2-2 start the rest of the year. Then they played in the Super Bowl. So there, Bill Belichick, Brady, and Amendola, 2 friends, very, very good friends. So the final here is 38-7. New England coming up next. Game 2 of our doubleheader. Saints and Giants, Niners and Chargers. Right now, for Rich Gannon and Steve Tasker, Kevin Harlan sending you to James Brown in our CBS studios in